Progress.
All right, if everybody remembers correctly, and 1 minute, let me just go back here 1 minute. Yes, all right, so what did we say? That the whole entire Judaism depends on Moses. Without Moshe, we would have never gotten out of Egypt. Without Moshe, we would have not received the Torah. Without Moshe, the Jewish people would have returned back to Egypt when they were in the desert. They didn't want to go into the land of Israel. Moses explained the Torah to everybody. He went on Mount Sinai. So okay, what's the point? What's the point of this? The point is that Moshe is activating the Jewish people, just like we finished learning in Likkutei Torah, that there will be Jews that are going to elevate all of the Torah and the commandments and the good deeds, etc., that we've done in the past, that'll reveal all of the pleasure that God got from all this. But without that, we're just living in a regular world where there's no God or Torah or commandments or reactions or interactions between us and God cares and God blesses us. There's none of that. So Moses comes and he makes the Jewish people aware that there is. The Jewish people were trapped in Egypt, and Moses said, yeah, but what about God? And the Jewish people said, what are you talking about? We're in Egypt. Don't even say that. We're in Egypt. No, you don't understand. You have take God into the picture. You have to, he's going to take you out of Egypt. They said, oh man, are you kidding? He's going to take us out of Egypt. Let us just make it a little bit easier on us that we can find a little straw and, or easily, you want to make a blessing that that they should make a little bit lower pyramids or something. What they got this crazy idea have to make such big pyramids. We're working day and night. Put it into their mind to make, instead of make like instead of pyramids, they can make like condos or something like that. That's what we need. Say no, you guys, we're getting out of Egypt. We're going to receive the Torah. And if they said, Moses, we just don't want any part of it. Moshe forced everyone to leave Egypt. Paro actually brought the Jewish people, and Moses actually took the Jewish people out. And when they were out, they wanted to go back. They didn't understand what it meant to be free. They didn't understand what it meant to serve God. So Moses was trying to tell the Jewish people, listen, you have to do my job. I'm not just inspiring you that you should just, just be sheep all the time. I want to activate you. You have to change the whole world, not just to free yourselves. That's not the job. That's why the Jews went into the land of Israel. From the land of Israel, they're supposed to learn how to change the whole entire world, to be influence for everybody. That's what it's supposed to be. How did Moses have this power? Who is this person, Moses? What's the thing? Why didn't Moses just say, my friends, true, you have to suffer in this world, but you are going to get your big reward in the world to come. In the by and by, we will all be together, basking in the rays of glory, and you'll be sitting around my throne, and everyone was this. Moses didn't even say anything like that. In the whole entire Torah, it's not mentioned going to heaven. In the 5 books of Moses. It's not a reward, not a punishment. What's Moses' whole thing? Moses' whole thing is, I want to make you into my emissaries, everybody in the world. How does Moses have this power to do this? I mean, good, Moses could, let's say, he had the power to withstand the temptations and be a holy person and be an example, and and if you believe in him, then you're going to go to heaven. Moses didn't want that. Moses wanted that everyone themselves should reveal who they themselves are. Who are they? Who is everybody? So that's Moses. It says that Moses was an Ish Elohim. Moshe was an Ish Elohim. He was a God man. And we finished by saying that God man meant, it said that the upper part of Moses was God and the lower part was man. In other words, he was a combination of God and man, which every human being is that, especially the Jews. Every Jew is a son of God. So every single Jew, therefore, every man is made in the image of God, but every Jew is the son of God, which means that we're direct relatives of God. You look at a Jew, you can see this is God. God in the world, every Jew. Says the Rebbe, that's only that Moses was a man, God, that's only half the picture. Moses was much higher than that, because there's another way of looking at it. The name Elohim, that's the name of God, how he relates to the world. That Moses, it says he was drawn from the water. Remember we learned this yesterday? That's even higher. That's the essence of Moses. It was connected to the essence of God. And Elohim is a little bit lower level of how God relates to the world. And Ish is how he's relating to the mundane part of the world. This hints at all these three things we said before, that Moses, comes from the essence of Moses to God, which that's, like we said, every single Jew. And Ish Elohim, this is how Moshe comes into the spiritual worlds and then into the physical world. So that's the idea of Moshe. It's like the Holy Temple. What was the Holy Temple? The Holy Temple had in it the Holy of Holies. That was how it was totally connected to God. Then it had an outer part, which was holy. And then it had an even more outer part, which is connected to the world. The same thing, we have Moshe, that's the essence of Moses. Then we have Elohim, that's the spiritual aspect. And then we have Ish. And so it is with every single Jew. And in fact, eventually it's going to be with every human. It's going to be with the whole world. We're going to see that the whole world will be filled with the awareness of God, like the Holy of Holies. But it'll be real, it'll be in the world. Just like Moses, he doesn't know the part of him which was totally connected to God. That wasn't like, that wasn't removed from the world. That was the power to be in the world. God is creating the world. God wants this world, but he wants us to reveal why he's creating the world. Okay, Haven since said by Moses, that Moses, he was the, I said, now we can understand also what it says in the end of that psalm. Remember, we learned Psalm 90. That happens to be the psalm of the Lubavitcher Rebbe in that year, in this year that the Rebbe was speaking. It was the psalm of he was 90 years old. He became 90 years old. And since that by Moses, it was really, it was really 89 years old going into the 90th. We read the 90th psalm. That's what it says in the end of the psalm. Right? It says, may the pleasantness of God be on us, and the work of our hands should be permanent for us. The work of our hands should be permanent. Why does it say twice? The work of our hands should be permanent on us, and the work of our hands should be permanent. That's what it says in the end of Psalm 90. Look it up. So since that by Moses, he was what's called a Mamutza Machaber. He was the joiner. He joined God with the world. Moses had two aspects of him. One is that Moshe, namely he was pure godliness, the Ish Elohim, and also he was relevant to the world, the spiritual world, the physical world. And therefore, Yeshno Etzel Moshe, there is by Moses below this idea of Nitzchiut V'Kaviyut. Therefore, Moshe was eternal and stable. Koach B'li Gavul, something which is unlimited, which cannot be moved. And it was revealed. Kamarumas B'Hemshech HaMizbar, like it says, Ma'on Ata Yisalanu. You have to look, it's a sort of a long psalm. Ma'on Ata Yisalanu, God, you were like a fortress, you were for us. But door from generation to generation. B'terem Harim Yiladu, before mountains were created, Me'olam ad olam, forever and forever, you are God. That's what we say in the Psalm. King David, because 1,000 years to you are like one day, like yesterday. So it is a nitzchius, namely what is talking about eternal. Time has no effect on him. But on the other hand, it's within time, it's within the world. Even by Moses, the God man, because he was totally surrendered to God. Nitzchius b'Moshe atzmo, Moses was eternal himself. Moses lo mate, Moses did not die. It's the same thing with the Holy Temple. The Holy Temple, it was destroyed only externally, but actually, physically, it wasn't. I think we have to say one thing. Let me just see if I remember if this is B'kol Dor V'Dor. In every single generation, there always has to be a representative of Moses. Nosef, in addition to the fact that every single Jew has a Moses inside of him. We said that everything in the Torah is inside of each one of us. That's one of the big lessons of Chassidut. The Torah is alive. Everything in the Torah is inside of us as well. Every Jew has an Abraham, an Isaac, a Jacob inside of him. It has inside of him a Paro and the Amalek. Every Jew. We also have Moses. Moses inside, but also in addition to that, there's one person that he is totally the Moses of every generation. And he has got his powers until even what Moses did was eternal. What I wanted to say is like this: since Adam ate from the tree, so what seems to us to be real in the world is less and less true. As we said so many times, what happened when Adam ate from the tree? He confused everything. He made everything covered. He confused the essential good of the world. He confused the potential holiness of the world. The same thing is he confused and hid the goodness in every human being, that every human being is made of God. It still is there. The world is good. The world is the best. Every human being is good. Not like these other religions say that everybody is cursed and the only way to get out of it is you have to. It's not so. It's not so. Everything is confused, but it's really confused. And what does it mean that it's really confused? What does confusion mean? Right? Let's say like you have a counterfeit money. Counterfeit money, right? So you're given a check, a counterfeit money, and it's signed. You know, you get a check that's signed by some multi-millionaire, right? Multi-millionaire, and it's a check for $1 million. And a person comes up to you and says, "Listen, I can't cash this check anywhere. It comes in the nighttime. I can't cash this thing anywhere, and I need $50,000 right now. It's a check for $100,000, but you know, I'm willing to give it to you $75,000." They say, "You need $50,000, huh? I'm not going to give you $75,000. I'll give you $50,000 for it." "Oh, come on, man! I really need the money." "Okay, I'll give it to you for $50,000. You got me over a barrel. What can I do? Here's my ID. Here's my passport. Here's my pictures. You can take pictures of me." Right? He gives him the check. The check is false. The guy runs away from you. He leaves you, but you shake hands. He goes away. The passport was false. He takes a mask off of his face. His face was false. His fingerprints was false. Everything was false. It looked so real. It looked so true. The fact is, it's worth less than just a regular piece of paper. A regular piece of paper, it doesn't fool you, right? A regular piece of paper, you throw in the garbage, you don't lose anything. This piece of paper caused you to lose $50,000 because you didn't misunderstand. The same thing was with the world. The world. The fact is, there is such a thing as good checks, and there's such things as real checks and checks that have cover to them. The same thing with the world. We look at the world and we think this is reality. The fact is, there is reality. And the world is real, but not the way it seems, not the way it looks. This world is a false check. It's a false check. It doesn't mean it's totally false. There is such a thing as a check. There is such a thing as a good check and a check with covering. This world is like a false check. Right? You look at it, everything in it is not to be taken at face value. You have to look inside and you have to understand, what is this for? What is this for? And finally reveal, oh, this is a false check. That's great. I needed a false check because I want to blow my nose. I haven't got any tissue paper. Let me have that check. What are you doing? It's a check for $100,000. What are you talking about? This is a piece of paper. It's worth exactly what a piece of paper is. And I really need a piece of paper. I'm grateful to you. If you look at the world the way it's supposed to be, and there's the reality of the world that is just covering over something true, then you can use the little bit of value that there is in the world for good things. In this case, the guy wants to blow his nose, or maybe he wants to use it as a placemat to put a cup of coffee on or something like that, right? It's not, don't take the world as being ultimately true and get drawn after the pleasures of the world and get aggravated by the frustrations of the world and have dreams about the greatness. Everybody's going to be, I'm going to be famous. The world is going to look at me. I'm going to be on the stage. I'm going to be great. Don't get involved in that. The world happens to be really good, but down deep, it's really good. So if you become famous and you become rich because God wants you to, that's wonderful. That's great. That's great. But the world shouldn't conquer you. That's what the problem is. So it says, Moses is true. And Moses he's the one that wants to show us what the truth is. When you see what's true, then that is eternal. Money that is made honestly, that money is eternal. What do you mean it's eternal? You're going to be rich your whole life? No. But what you do with the money, you do eternal things. You help people with it. You do positive things. You build positive things. Look, and therefore Moses had the power to draw down God's presence below. Why? Because by means of his prayers. And you know him because Moses was a special person that saw the truth. He saw the godliness in everything. And that's what it means. May God's pleasantness be on. That's how it starts off. Yehi noam Hashem. The pleasantness of God will be on us. Yehi ratzon shetishra shechina, that the shechina will be in our handiwork. In other words, even the things that we do will be permanent. Often konan neoleim bekavios, it'll be set the door from generation to generation until that what Merumezes, this hints at the eternalness, the infiniteness of the third temple, that it will never be destroyed forever, even externally. The first temple was destroyed externally. The second temple was destroyed externally, but internally it was never destroyed. The bricks and the things which were in the world, they were destroyed. How could they be? It was holy. This is because the Jewish people were supposed to have used them, and it was supposed to influence the Jewish people in an eternal way, and it didn't. So God said, okay, well, I'll give you another chance. Okay, just like by Moses himself, he has these two things, that Moses was Moshe, which means he was connected to God. Ish Elohim, and he was Ish Elohim, a man of this lower aspect of God, and he was in the world. Kach, these two things are in the blessings and the prayers of Moses. Hamshacha, namely, Hashem Aleinu, that God should be honest and our deeds should be permanent. Our deeds should be permanent. Namely, drawing down God's presence in the Mishkan. That's what Moses did in the tabernacle, which that was godliness, which is above the world. That's like Elohim. And it should be ba'ofen in such a way, shezem mitlabish, that it's brought into our insides. Yesh lomar, that's hinted at in that double language. Maisei adenu konan no aleinu. Our handwork should be permanent for us. That's in a way of makif milamayla, it should be permanent, namely that God should do a miracle, that what we do is permanent, and also, namely, unlimited, so it'll be permanent, and also our deeds should be permanent. What does it mean? That this machazek et ha'maaseh yadenu atzmam. In other words, not just what God does, the holy temple, but even the physical things that we do. Horad should choder. It should be permeated into even the handiwork that we do, the houses that we build, and etc. Everything. It shouldn't just be that God did it for us, but that we do. That we should. In other words, not just that everything we see, miracles and everything that God is doing, but everything that we do. So that's the whole, again, stressing the whole idea that God wants this physical world, our deeds, our words, our thoughts, human beings in this world with possessions and families and talents and abilities and challenges and everything. That God wants all that, but it should just be on his terms. And that we should reveal the godliness and everything, why God is doing all this, why God is making this amazing creation. This will even be stressed even more. But careful, and it says doubled and redoubled. Redoubled and doubled. The toshia means for power. It's not just doubled. It means doubled and redoubled and redoubled and redoubled, but not just in quantity, but also in quality, eichut. Kefil, kashur, gamken, and megula, namely the future redemption. The future redemption, but Pratiyat Yoter in more detail, like Rashi explains. Just one moment here. Yes. Yes. Even more, what Rashi explains, this doubled language over there in in Psalms. Rashi also explains the Psalms. Shnei Pamim, why does it say Maisi Adenu Konanu Aleinu, that may our handiwork be, I say, permanent for us, may it be permanent for us. Twice he says. One is talking about Melechas and Mishkan. Rashi explains that one, when it says doubled, may our handiwork be permanent for us, may it be permanent for us. It says it twice in the end of the Psalm. One is talking about the work of the Mishkan, of the tabernacle. Sheberchan liYisrael, that it was blessed for the Jewish people, and Moses prayed, because this is a tefillah l'Moshe, right? It's a prayer for Moshe, that the Shekhinah, God's presence, should be resting on what the Jews built in the tabernacle. That's what it means. Shetei brachas maseh yadeim. And the other one should be the handiwork of the Jewish people, even outside of the tabernacle. I hope he said we can understand why it says it's talking about a double blessing of Moses. Maisi Yadenu means should be eternal. Maisi Yadenu, again, that's holiness and holiness. And the second time it says Maisi Yadenu is talking about even mundane things in the world. Maasecha, darchecha. God wants the whole world to be a holy place, not just the holy temple. Shagam, even though she'elu. So the first time when it says may our handiwork be permanent, it's talking about in holy things, and may our handiwork be permanent. Handwork be permanent. The second time, that's talking about even physical things in the world. That's talking about being in the world. Your business, your house, your next door neighbor. Machdis behem Moshe at kol nitzchius. Moses put all of his eternalness in these. Yesterday, I was in Kfar Chabad, and it was very strange. I don't know exactly what happened, but there was some sort of it's not a nice thing what I'm going to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. Somehow or other, there was one driver decided to do something, I don't know, and he stopped with this other driver. So he parked his car, whatever, on the side. He had a big sort of a van. And it was in a way that the person behind him, he had to stop. He had to go around him. It was not a very wide road. It was just big enough for, two directions, one direction or another. So the one behind him, he went around. What are you going to do? He went around. But then it was revealed that this person that stopped, the person that stopped, when he saw this guy was going around him, and of course, God arranged that the person that was going around him, he was also pulling a trailer right behind him, one of these small trailers behind him. So he was like twice as long as a regular car. So it was very hard for him to maneuver. Anyway, he was going around this van, and as soon as the van saw that he was going around, so he inched forward a little bit, so this guy could not, he was stuck in this lane. It was opposite him. So obviously the person in the van, either he wasn't aware of what he was doing, because who knows, or he did it on purpose. I don't know what happened. So meanwhile, the people were coming, and I happened to be the first one. I was coming the opposite direction, and I was stopped up by this guy who was trying to go around, right? Trying to go around.
Sounds like New York.
Huh? Yeah.
Sounds like New York.
Yeah. Anyway, so this is in Kfar Chabad. So, I'm already a little bit older already, and I've already realized that getting angry doesn't help anyway. And not only that, I'm giving all these classes, and once in a while, I think, listen, maybe I should do this stuff that I'm talking about, that I shouldn't. So I figured I'm not going to get angry. I'm going to be calm about the whole thing, and what's happening. People behind me are all honking. They don't understand what's going on. They figure that I'm at fault. And then, so they're behind me, they're all honking, but I'm calm, and I'm signaling to them, just wait 1 minute, the people behind me. Finally, this guy, everybody's honking, everybody's going berserk. The guy in the van So he goes forward. Finally, he decides to go forward. And the guy with the trailer, he gets back behind him. And I pass by him, and it's a friend of mine. I see the friend of mine. I say, hey, how you doing? This fellow was blazing angry. And he was honking, and he was cursing, screaming, this guy. And it was just so not like him. And I know the fellow, he's such a nice guy, we've had such nice conversations and everything like that. But he drives for a living. He's got a taxi service, so he's always on the road. And this guy really did something that was terrible. But he was screaming. His face was like a dog. I mean, it was just, and he was really screaming, and he was yelling at us. So everybody had a good excuse. Everybody had a good excuse. And I have to admit that I was like sort of superhuman, because I was also, usually something happens like that. I also, at least a couple of exclamations or something like that come out from me in the car. What the heck is going on? But I didn't. I was really calm. I was really this. And I saw, that this guy was screaming. That's where I could easily have been, even though he used words which I don't know if I would use, but it could be. I mean, it's certainly not beyond me. And he was screaming and yelling. Suddenly I realized, this is exactly what the Rebbe is talking about. This is a real world with real people, with real situations, with real aggravations, with real frustrations. Everybody has their property and everybody has their thing. And justly so, people, the guy wants to move, he has to. So that's to make this world holy, to think about what does God want me to do in every situation. This is not a normal thing to do. And that's exactly what God wants, that this world should be not what's normal now is sick. The world is false. It's like a big, huge false check. And we get excited about it and we're aggravated about it. And this guy that's holding onto this false check, if somebody would steal it from him, he would get angry. He knows who he would even pull out a gun. He would shoot the guy, you stole my check from him. And the thing is not worth anything. It's not worth anything. And the same thing with the world. It's worth what a piece of paper is worth. So if you know how to use a piece of paper properly, the same thing with the world. The world is like, it's a bad check, but it's worth something. If you know how to use it properly, it's worth something. And this we get the power from Moses. The Moses of our generation is the Rebbe. That's what it says. That's the prayer of Moses. This is one of the prayers of Shabbat. Al pi zeh, we can understand that this prayer is relevant, especially to Shabbat. Like it says, Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbat. This is part of the prayer of Moses. This is one of the 11 prayers that Moses prayed. It says from Tzaddik until Kuf Yud Aleph. These are Moses came and he said this. He said the name of the Mizmor L'Yom HaShabbat, and that's the first letters is Le Moshe, Le Moshe, right? Moshe. Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbat. These are the letters of Le Moshe. Yesh Lomo, we can say that the connection between this and the songs of Shabbat, we say the rabbis, is Iska the Shabbos Kaful. Everything in Shabbos is doubled. You have it says the two amounts of manna fell on Friday for Shabbat because it didn't fall on Shabbat. Everything on Shabbos is doubled. And explained in many places that there's what it means that there's two levels of Shabbat itself. And every Shabbat is what's called Male Shabbat. That's the evening Shabbat where everything goes up. The Yom of the Shabbat and the day of Shabbat, which that's when Moses got the tablets, everything came down. Menucha be'erich liyagia. There is what's called rest on Shabbat in the nighttime. That's resting from the work we did on the week. And then there's the resting in the daytime. This is resting, essence of resting. What does it mean, rest in peace? Didn't I say many times, and the Rebbe said many times, when Moshiach comes, the world will be dynamic, will work more. It says, no, what it means, it'll be rest from all frustrations. There'll be rest from all disappointments, and that we'll enjoy doing it. So it'll be like the work of Shabbat, like the difference between the name of Elohim and the name of Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. The beginning of Shabbat is that we're separating from the world. We're separating from all these frustrations and difficulties in the world. That's the night of Shabbat. And the day of Shabbat, then we realize we're free to appreciate God. Well, but Shabbat comes both of these two things together. It's double. That we're free from the confusion of the world, and on the other hand, we're connected to the goodness of God. The Yesh Lomar, we can say that this is the double of this psalm. Tefillah Moshe Isha Elokim. Moses is the highest level. That's Yud Kei Vav Kei. And Ish Elokim, that's the lower name of God, is Elokim. That's like the first aspect of Shabbat when we separate from the world. And the higher aspect of God is when we connect to God. It's like being free from and being free to. Mizmor, it says, may the pleasantness of God be on us. This pleasantness, this is the level of Shabbat. That's what we said before. Shabbat, like it says, something like when the tabernacle was made. The tabernacle was made for work, but you were working for God. It was a way of rest. Maaseh Yadeinu Konaneo, that was a permanent thing. And Maaseh Yadeinu Konaneo, and when it said again it'll be permanent, that's talking about not only is the tabernacle and the holy things we do in the tabernacle holy, but even the mundane things we do. That's the whole idea of Shabbat, that it brings holiness in this rest into the whole rest of the week. That even when we go to business and there's all the confusion and we get stuck in a traffic jam, nevertheless, we have this Shabbat, we have the connection to God, our Creator. This is what's called, the first aspect of Shabbat is resting from what we've done in the week. And then we have another level, which is called rest in essence. That's what it means. This is in the weekday things. That we can take this rest even into the weekday things, an essential rest that we can bring even into the world. We can affect the whole world to be in rest. But Shabbat, that's like Moses. Kashur, it's attached to something eternal. Like it says, every single Shabbat, it is like the day Shekula Shabbat Amunuchal Chayalamim. Every Shabbat is something like this days of the Moshiach, when everything is going to be in a way of rest. An eternal rest, a geula. It comes by means of Meshamrim Shtei Shabbatot. We do 2 Shabbases. If the Jews keep 2 Shabbases, then Mashiach comes. What does it mean, 2 Shabbases? It means the 2 levels in every Shabbat. The bottom part, which is separating from the world, and the top part is connecting to God. That's why everything in Shabbat is doubled. That's the thing of Moshe, which is connecting to God. And Ish Elokim, that's being separated from the world. As we'll talk about more, God willing, tomorrow, we explain what Moses is, the Moses in each one of us, how we can connect to the Creator and bring that connection into everything that we do. Now let's do the Yom Yom.